gardening friends, welcome back to my channel, Tiger Bloom. If this is your first time stopping by, welcome to the channel. So we've been getting slammed, absolutely slammed with snow these past couple of days. We got our first major heavy snowfall starting on Saturday afternoon. It lasted all day on Sunday, and we had a little bit more yesterday on Monday. Today is Tuesday, December 2nd. And we are currently sitting in about a foot of snow. It's also very cold. Right now, the temperature gauge is registering at about 19 degrees Fahrenheit. So very frigid and cold out. So rather than being out in the garden, I thought that I would do some more planning for next year's garden and wanted to bring you along as I start to think about what I want to plant out in my cut flower garden for next year. So I have a cut flower garden bed in my backyard that is around 12 inches deep and 12 to 15 feet in length. And it's reserved just for my cut flowers. So these would be flowers that I like to cut, bring inside the house, and make bouquets during the spring and summer. I prefer to plant cut and come again flowers in this garden bed. And that would be basically flowers that you can plant, you can harvest them, and they will continue to grow and produce more blooms and foliage throughout the season until they die back at the end of the season, or we get some sort of inclement weather. So the last couple of years, my primary cut flower of choice has been zinnias and dahlias. So in this video, I'm going to focus on talking about dahlias only because that is the portion of the cut flower garden that I'm going to focus on planning out today. In particular, there's a couple of topics that I'm going to try to cover. I'm going to probably look down here and there because I have a couple of notes and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So a few things I'm going to try to cover in this video, including what varieties I grew in 2025, how did they perform, will I be growing them again in 2026? Where do I get my tubers from? When do I typically place my order? When do I typically receive? And then when I typically plant them out. So if this is something that you're interested in, then please keep watching. So I planted 4 different varieties of dinner plate dahlias this year. And they are Thomas Edison, Lavender Perfection, which is the one that you see on screen here from the video I posted about a month ago of my cut flower garden. I also planted Merrill Star and then a dinner plate dahlia called Vasio Mego. And I will put the names on the screen in case I mispronounce something. I typically like and prefer dinner plate dahlias because I want the biggest blooms that I can get out of a flower. I want as many blooms as I can get, and I tend to get lots of blooms and at least 8 to 10 inch blooms with dinner plates. When it comes to cut flowers, I want them to be sort of the centerpiece of my flower bouquets. In terms of how they performed, I typically have pretty good success with the dinner plate dahlias. I didn't experience any disease this year. I did have a little bit of disease in years past, and I think that was more so because of me versus the plant. The last couple of years, I've been using drip irrigation, and I think that's really helped with reducing the amount of disease, like powdery mildew, that I would typically see on some of my cut flower plants. So very hardy plant. Big, beautiful blooms. Like I said, like typically my blooms are between 8 to 10 inches in width, full of color, visually speaking. I think that I really liked the way that all of them looked. The only one that I would say that I probably wasn't a big fan of in terms of how impressive the petals looked was the Merrill Star. Thomas Edison, though, and the Lavender Perfection are probably my 2 favorite. Thomas Edison is sort of like a nice light pink pastel color. And then the Lavender Perfection is like their really deep purple color. I typically lean towards pinks and purples. in this cut flower garden, because those are, that's the color palette that I just love. Pink is my favorite color, and I love the way purple pairs with the light pink. So I typically plant those two colors in particular. One other thing to note is that these plants typically, based on the website, typically get up to between 36 to 48 inches tall. And I can honestly say that they definitely exceeded that. All four were definitely taller than me. I'm about 5'3", and they were taller than me. So definitely very tall. That's obviously something that you'll want to take into consideration if you decide to order something similar. Is, do you have enough space to grow a flower or a plant of this size? I don't have any issues with that because it's not blocking anything. It gets plenty of sunlight in that area. You just have to make sure that you stake it, so that when you get a lot of wind, or when they get so tall that they start to get heavy because of the blooms, that they don't topple over. I was really impressed with all four. And there's probably at least two that I will order again this year. So where do I get my dahlia tubers from? I typically order from Longfield Gardens is the website, and I think they're a company that's based in New Jersey. But a lot of their tubers come from Holland, and I think it helps with them, being very hardy, especially in cooler climates. I have typically no issues at all. They're very high quality. I've ordered from them for about, I guess, maybe 5 years now. Everything is packaged very well. I've had no issues with damage. Everything that I plant, it sprouts, it grows. I've never had an issue where um, a tuber doesn't sprout. And so that's why I continue to go back to them, because if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I've had just really great success with their tubers. So I typically place my order in January or February. I think last year, or so early this year, I placed the order for 2025. I placed the order in February, and in years past, I typically place my orders in January. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I think as long as you get your order in, I typically would say try to get it in before March. They usually start to take pre-orders in January and February for things that they typically will ship out in March or April. Now, they typically ship based on your zone. So I'm in zone 6. So mine will typically ship in April, early April. But that is something you want to take into consideration as well. I like to wait in order until January or February, because around that time, the company typically has discounts and other deals that they will typically offer to try to get people to, start placing their pre-orders. So I will likely place my order in January. But in the meantime, I will go onto the site now so that I can show you what I ordered last year, or I keep saying last year, but for 2025, and then what I'm thinking about ordering for 2026. All right, so now I'm going to take you to the Longfield Gardens website so I can show you what I purchased earlier this year and planted out in the garden. And then I will briefly show you some of the things that I'm thinking about purchasing for next year. So if we go to the Longfield Gardens website, so as I mentioned, I purchased 4 different varieties of dahlias. Now, one of the purchases consisted of a collection of dahlias. So one thing that I do like about the company is they will offer collections where you can get 2 or 3 different varieties. In this case, this collection was called the Dahlia Dinner Plate Summer Loving Collection is what I purchased earlier this year and planted out. This particular collection included 3 different varieties. So the Thomas Edison, the Lavender Perfection, and the Merrill Star that I mentioned. And you get 2 tubers for each variety. So that's 6 tubers. Right now they're offering it for $43 for 6, which I think is a pretty good deal. So that's 3 of the 4 varieties that I ordered. The other variety that I ordered is the Vacío Magos. This is what it looks like here. Um, Again, this is another pink, as you can see, like a common theme here. I love purples and pinks. This one, I thought the blooms were a little bit smaller than the Thomas Edison and the Lavender Collection. Also, the Lavender Perfection dahlias. They were still beautiful. I probably won't order it again for next year. I probably won't do the collection again this year just because I don't necessarily want the Meryl Star again. This is the Meryl Star here in the back. Not a huge fan of the shape of the petals and also the color variation. I'm probably going to stick with getting the Lavender Perfection again this year, maybe purchase it separately. I also want to get another set of Thomas Edison. So I'll definitely probably have those 2 on my list for 2026. And then I'm also thinking about maybe adding a different pop of color, like a yellow. So I'm thinking about I think it's called Kevin Floodlight Dinner Plate Dahlia, which is this one here. And I just think pops of yellow in a sea of pink and purple flowers. This one gets up to 10 inches in terms of bloom size. And I believe in terms of height, it grows 40 inches tall is what the company claims on the website. It's probably going to get a little bit taller than that. But I just think that would be so pretty to have the yellow and then like a deep purple and a light pink. So those are definitely the 3 varieties that I'm going to plan to order for 2026. I'm still not yet settled on the 4th variety. I still have to, browse the website a bit more to see what else I want to get. I'm also thinking about purchasing what they call a border. What is it called? Like a decorative border flower. And this would be more so not for my cut flower garden, but for my planters that I have dispersed throughout the garden. I like to either put caladiums in there or either like a very short dahlia. And these, what they call decorative or border decorative dahlias, are nice to kind of put in the planters because they don't get very tall, these particular variety of dahlias. I think I've ordered this pink Allegro in the past. And let's see, I think it grows, up to 24 inches tall, right? So it would be perfect. I think I don't want anything that's more than a couple feet tall for the planters. So I'm thinking about maybe ordering 1 or 2 varieties of these as well for next year so I can put them in the planters that I have throughout the garden. So as I previously mentioned, I will likely place my order in January and expect that it will probably ship out in early April, as in years past. Once I receive the shipment in the mail, I typically let them sit in the box or in the packaging for about a week or 2, just to kind of let them settle and kind of get used to the climate. Upon removing them from the packaging, I will then put them in nursery pots that are about, I guess about 6 to 8 inches deep. And I will fill the pots with like a seed starting mix. I will let them sit in the room where I place all of my seed starts. I'll let them sit there until I start to see a sprout, like green leaves sprouting from the tubers. Once I see a first green leaf, then I start to spritz them with water until they're about, about 6 inches tall. And then I'll start to transition them to outdoors so I can start to harden them off before I plant them in the ground. I typically have them planted outdoors in the ground around Mother's Day. So either the week of Mother's Day or the week after, because I want to make sure there's no risk of us getting a frost that might potentially kill the foliage that is already sprouted from the tubers. So around that time, I will plant them out. And then I typically get my first blooms in July or August. So I think this year I got the first blooms at around the end of July. In years past, it's been early August. But they will typically bloom all the way up until November or until we get our first light frost here in the Midwest. So that's my plan for 2026. I don't plan to deviate a whole lot from what I did in 2025, but there are going to be a few minor tweaks here and there to the varieties that I intend to order for the upcoming season. So, all in all, 4 varieties of dinner plate dahlias and a couple varieties of border decorative dahlias. I'll be posting a separate video where I cover the zinnias that I grew in the cut flower garden this year, what I intend to grow for 2026, as well as other varieties of flowers that I intend to start myself from seed and plant throughout the garden for 2026. So stay tuned for that video. I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And drop me a comment and let me know if you grow dahlias in your garden and if you intend to plant some for 2026. Drop me a comment and let me know. I love to hear from you. Until next time, friends, take care.